You hear it all the time, right? AI is changing everything. But what if the best way to understand this, super futury tech is actually to look back in time? What can an invention from the 15th century tell us about the revolution happening right on our screens? That's what we're going to dig into right now. So let's kick things off with this really powerful idea from computer scientist Andrew Ng. He doesn't just compare AI to some small invention. Nope. He compares it to electricity, a force that literally rewired the whole world. So you can see, this isn't a claim about making things a little bit better. This is a claim about a massive, fundamental shift in how our entire society works.
So what does that even mean, to be a transformative technology? Is there some kind of pattern to these huge disruptions? Well, it turns out there is. And to get it, we need to rewind the clock, way back to the first great information revolution.
All right, so let's jump back in time. We're talking about the printing press. And believe me, it was so much more than just an old machine. It was an engine of change that completely rewired how we think. And this slide, it really breaks down that massive shift. So on the left, you've got the world before print. The historian Elizabeth Eisenstein pointed out that knowledge back then was super fragile. Think about it. Every single time a scribe copied a book by hand, tiny mistakes could sneak in. So knowledge didn't just spread, it kind of fell apart over time. But then you look at the right side. After print, total game changer. For the first time, people could build on what others had done, knowing for sure that they were all looking at the exact same page. And this really gets to the core of the whole thing. All of a sudden, you could duplicate maps, charts, you name it, perfectly, again and again and again. This created this shared, solid foundation of information that it just didn't exist before. Okay, but here's the really key part. The magic wasn't just making copies. It was being able to compare them. Because once scholars could actually lay different books out side by side, they started seeing things. I'm talking contradictions, errors, things that had gone totally unnoticed for centuries. And that critical eye, that new ability to question old ideas, that's what helped spark the Renaissance and the scientific revolution. So you see, this whole story about the printing press, it's not just a history lesson. It actually gives us a pattern, a kind of four-step playbook for how these world-changing technologies really work. Okay, so here's the pattern. It's basically 4 steps. First, some new tech comes along and totally changes how we keep and share knowledge. Second, that lets us compare ideas like never before, on a huge scale. Third, all that comparing reveals what's wrong with the old ways and kicks off a wave of new ideas. And finally, step 4, society gets completely reshaped, often in ways nobody saw coming. And here's the cool part. This pattern isn't just for information. Let's take electricity, for example. The writer Vaco Simmel makes a great point about how energy shapes society. The electric grid, that was a brand new way to move power around. That's step 1. It let companies compare and fine-tune new industrial processes, which led to things like the assembly line, boom, steps 2 and 3. And in the end, it completely reshaped our physical world, step 4. See, it's the same pattern, just with energy instead of ink. Which, of course, brings us to right now. We've seen this pattern play out with the printing press and with electricity. So the big question is AI following the same 4-step playbook? Well, if you look at the scale of it, the answer seems to be a big yes. I mean, just look at this number. Back in 2020, the AI market was predicted to rocket past $47 billion. And that was up from just $8 billion a few years before. And we all know it has only sped up like crazy since then. This isn't some slow-moving trend. It's a wildfire. And that kind of explosive growth, that's a textbook sign of a major transformation. But what are the real-world consequences we should be thinking about? Andrew Ng makes a really interesting point here. He says we should probably worry less about the sci-fi stuff, the evil killer robots, and focus more on the challenges that are right in front of us. The real concern, he says, isn't some Terminator-style future. It's something much more immediate: job displacement. And just like electricity, its impact is spreading, everywhere. This is not some niche little tech for a handful of companies. I mean, just look at this list. Fintech, healthcare, logistics, transportation. AI is basically becoming the new electrical grid that's going to power pretty much every single industry. Okay, so if we're on board with the idea that AI is one of these huge, transformative technologies, then we have to ask, what's the big challenge this time around? What makes this wave different? Well, according to AI pioneer Mustafa Suleiman, the key word for our era is containment. Think about it for a second. Building nuclear weapons was incredibly hard. It took massive government resources. But AI, these tools are becoming cheap and accessible to almost anyone. So the risk isn't just from a few big players anymore. The challenge is, how do you manage a technology that powerful when it can be in literally anyone's hands? So what do we do? Well, history might just give us a hint. Andrew NG points out that the last time we saw a massive job shift, when automation moved people from farms to factories, we didn't just sit back. We had to invent our entire modern education system, from K-12 to universities, just to retrain the workforce. Basically, we built brand new systems for a brand new world.
And that really brings us to the final and maybe the most important question. The last great information revolution, the printing press, it gave us mass literacy and the modern school system. So if this AI revolution is just as big, what new systems, what new kinds of institutions do we need to start building right now?